Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You are listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, where the film critic meets the Scream fan twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Before I go any further, I need to thank the producers and administrators of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. First, I need to thank TJ Jones, who does all of the graphic design work from the podcast. Also, I need to thank Ashley Summers, Mark Vieira, Sarah Campbell, and Sam Levy for helping me keep the podcast and Patreon community afloat. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Patreon at any and every tier. I'm an independent entity, so any bit of support that comes into the Patreon goes back into the podcast. Joining the Patreon gets you ad-free and early access to every episode, as well as the opportunity to join the community of the show. We have group chats across social media. In particular, Instagram is really the hub of the podcast community. More importantly, joining the Patreon is the vessel in which you would use to come onto the podcast, either in a one-on-one situation with me or a small panel. In addition, there's a guaranteed invite every month to a big group Zoom recording about a Scream topic. An exciting feature of the podcast is the audio commentary episodes. Every Scream fan knows what it was like listening to Wes Craven do the audio commentaries for the original trilogy and Scream 4, with Marianne Maddalena and Kevin Williamson and Patrick Lussier. And what I'm trying to do for my Patreon subscribers is I am going to be performing an audio commentary of a Scream or a Scream-related movie, one per month, every month. And my goal is to try to approach these as I'm doing deep analytical analysis about the characters, about the themes, about just general reaction. So it's something that I'm really proud of and I hope continues to be a cherished part of the podcast. So the commentary is available as a normal podcast episode for anybody to listen to like they would any other podcast, but it will also be available as a video watch along. So everybody, please go over to Patreon, subscribe to Scream with RCS. I would be eternally grateful. So I need to go through and thank everybody over at Patreon who is subscribed as a stab investor or a daddy/mama Ghostface. So the daddy/mama Ghostface of the Patreon are Carrie Tenney, Brett Janovich, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears. The stab investors include Allie, Amar Karim, Tamika Jones, David D, Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Josh Calamari, Josh Carr, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, The Horror Project podcast, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Quentin Harrison, and Sam Levy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers, and joining me today, I have my co-host, my bud, the Michelle Visage to my RuPaul. Everybody, please welcome Amar Karim. Hey, Amar.
Hello, Ryan. Yeah, it's so good to be here, Ryan. You know that I always say it every time I come on. I'm like, there's a buzz in the air. So, yeah, glad to be here.
Buzz is buzzing today, for sure. So, Amar, what is our topic for today?
So today we're ranking every single Ghostface in order of how we like them. But it's more interesting that it's just not about a Ghostface. It's everything that encompasses these characters. So I think that's going to be a very fun discussion.
Right. So, whenever I threw out the topic to Amar, I said, let's do a Ghostface ranking. We've never done it, and people have always asked me to do it. When are you going to do a Ghostface ranking episode? The completionist, I've always been like, okay, well, I'll do it after we have all of the films. That way it's complete. We have a complete list. But who knows, just because we're getting Scream 7 doesn't mean we'll get 8 and 9 after that. So even if I wait until March to do this, I'll still have an outdated episode at some point, right? So, I think that we should do it. And then once we get new killers, we will redo it. So I think that's what we should do. So, but I basically gave Amar a broad criteria here about ranking the ghost faces, because how I see ghost face killers is we all kind of interpret these things very differently. Somebody could think of this as holistic, like the characters from beginning to end. Some people can think of it just as them in the costume and then in the finale, or just in the finale. So there's a lot you could do with Ghostface killers. And I basically instructed Amar to look at it holistically. Look at the character before the reveal, after the reveal, the person as they are hypothetically in the costume, the whole thing that encompasses them as a Ghostface killer. As much as it's most important for them to be outside of the costume in the finale, battling Sydney or Sam, who they are in the first half or first 2/3 of the movie, where they're hiding, pretending not to be the killer, is really important to informing them as a killer, if that makes sense. So it's, for me, it's not just the finale. It's not just them in the costume killing people. It's the whole picture. So
Exactly. That's what I took on board, and that's why I rank them the way I'm going to rank them, because this is slightly different to what I normally put Ghostfaces as. But you'll be surprised. We'll see.
Oh, well, I will say this. If Roman Bridger is below any of the Bailey family, I'm dropping the call. I'm blocking you on every social media platform, and we will have no contact ever again.
Honestly, if you could see me right now, this was like eye roll central. But anyway, we'll see.
Okay, so I say we just kick it off with our lists like we did in the opening for the premiere episodes, where Amar will read his list from best to worst, and I'll read my list best to worst, and then we'll go through each killer and talk about them. So,
Okay, so we have, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 12 killers, because we didn't include Jason. So number 1, Billy Loomis. Number 2, Jill Roberts. Number 3, Roman Bridger.
oh my God.
Yeah, I know, right? Normally he's like 5 or 6, but anyway. Number 4, Mickey. Number 5, Mrs. Loomis. Number 6, Stu Mocker. Number 7, Charlie Walker. Number 8, Amber Freeman. I know, when I was typing this out, I was like, please, just type it. Let your fingers type. Yeah, 7 was Charlie Walker. Number 8, Amber Freeman. Number 9, Richie. 10, Detective Bailey. Number 11, Quinn. And number 12, Ethan Landry.
My mind is blown. I'm perplexed right now. This is shocking because
I told
have
you.
been longtime listeners of the podcast who have documented my rankings and Amar's rankings and our thoughts on Ghostface killers over the past 5 years will be stunned at some of these developments. And I guess that there's nobody out there, maybe Josh Carr, who has paid special attention to this, but oh my God. So I can't wait to talk about this now. This is shocking. Okay, so number 1, I have Roman Bridger. Number 2, I have Jill Roberts. Number 3, I have Billy Loomis. Number 4, I have Nancy Loomis. Number 5, I have Stu Mocker. Number 6, I have Mickey. Number 7, I have Charlie Walker. Number 8, I have Amber Freeman. Number 9, I have Quinn. Number 10, I have Richie. Number 11, I have Wayne, aka Detective Bailey. And number 12, I have Ethan. Oh my gosh. Wow. Amar. So I want to just kind of like give listeners perspective here. You always had the Scream 1 and 2 killers and Jill above Roman, and he jumped up pretty high for you this time. So that's a change. It seems like Stu dropped down. It seems like Charlie Walker, whom you have ragged on for 5 years on this podcast, has jumped up from last place to 7th place. I was surprised that you put Detective Bailey over Quinn. All of that. So, Amar, how would you say your ranking has changed today versus in the past?
Normally what I do is I would look at how they are, post revelation and who they are before that, But this time round, I thought, okay, let's see how sneaky they are, how effective they are actually in the Ghostface costume, and what their motive is all about. And I try to encompass everything into one to give me a picture of these characters as a whole, like you set out. So when I did that, I looked at some of them and I thought, well, okay, normally I would have Quinn above Detective Bailey. I would have Charlie Walker, like you said, last or above just Ethan Landry. And I definitely didn't have Roman at number 3. So going over this last night, I was literally thinking, okay, look at the kills, look at their motive, look at who they are, their character development, and look at everything. And yeah, it just gave me a big perspective on who these people really are. And I try to see them for the whole package. And that's why I've put them in the order that I've put them.
Wow. I'm just surprised. Wow. I mean, this is insane. I'm just doing some quick math here, and I'm trying to figure out like our average. So our average number 1, it would be a 3-way tie between Roman, Jill, and Billy. And then Nancy would be number 4, but below them. Then Stu and Mickey would be tied next. And then Charlie would be next. That is so fun to me. I love that. It's actually, for me, it makes sense that Billy and Jill and Roman would be tied. They are all equal, in my opinion, in some respect. Like even though I kind of like make fun of people who say Billy Loomis is their favorite killer, because it's like, well, duh, of course he is, right? He's still an amazing killer. And I think that I don't know. Can I just quickly ask, like, do you think that like the use of Billy Loomis in 5 and 6 was a good thing for his legacy or a bad thing? Like, do you think that it made you appreciate him more, or do you think that it like made you tired of him?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. I mean, I liked originally when I saw Scream 5, I didn't think it was a good idea, but because of the whole Sam character, I like where they were trying to take this. I don't think it was needed, to be honest, but it didn't make me like him any less, or it didn't taint his legacy, in my opinion. It was neither here nor there. I mean, like, okay, I'm fine with it. I mean, had it been removed, it would have been fine. But now that it's there, I accept it for what it is. Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't even have a massive opinion on it anymore. It's just kind of like, yeah, cool, whatever. It's just there.
So I was a fan in Scream 5, and then much like everything, as the arc has gone, when Scream 6 kind of ruined it for me, and I don't know why. Because he's very sparingly used in 6. But I just think that, like, I will say, like, I am sick of the Billy Loomis of it all. Like, the fact that we're going to Stu makes, in terms of like being that person of reference for like Scream 7 in the same way that 5 and 6 were for Billy. I'm happy about it. I think I'm kind of sick and tired of Billy Loomis because of the Sam of it all. The the robe wearing, the glass, the everything Sam. Like, I'm just kind of, I think that they overdid the Billy Loomis thing, and it kind of made me, at first it was cute, and then it just kind of became overwrought, and I don't think that they truly went anywhere or truly made a big statement about the Billy Loomis visions overall. And like, I just think it's too much,
I feel that had they left it in 5 alone and not brought it into 6, it would have been far better. I mean, it makes sense to have it in 5. And then with 6, it's just like they were trying to go with all this, oh, well, is she going to follow in her father's footsteps? And I think it was overkill, in my opinion.
Right. So, all right, well, Amar, I'm going to go through and say our consensus ranking for those out there, just because this is very fun to me. This is easier. I thought I'd be over here doing math while Amar was talking, but I'm not. Yep. So, okay, so number 1, we have a 3-way tie. It's Roman, Jill, and Billy. And we love that. Then Nancy, then Stu and Mickey are tied for 3rd place. So that makes sense to me, actually, is like them being tied, because I see Stu and Mickey very much as counterparts of each other. And we'll get to that, I'm sure. And then Charlie, then Amber, then Richie, then Quinn and Detective Bailey, and then Ethan's in last. That is fun. So, okay, Mar, let's go in chronological order here, because by the time we get to the Baileys, we're going to be tired of talking. So it's like, we can let them go.
Yeah.
Okay, so Billy Loomis. We're talking about him as it pertains to Scream 5, but let's go back to Scream 1. Amar, kick us off. You have him ranked as your number 1. Why is he your number 1?
He's my number 1 because throughout the entire film, he is used as this red herring, like he is the killer, or he's not the killer. But what I love about Billy Loomis is how he's had this like mysteriousness about him from the very start. Like, do we know what he's really thinking? You don't. Even when I watch Scream 1 back right now, I think the way that Skeet plays him, it's very borderline, like, oh, he could be a psycho. Oh, no, he's not a psycho. No, he just cares about her. He's trying to be nice. And the whole phone call whilst he's locked up, throws you off a little bit. And then you think, well, okay, it's not him. The reason I have him above Jill and Roman is only because he's the only Ghostface that I watch in the final scene where I'm actually scared of him. He comes across as actually quite psychotic, but in a very deranged way. Whereas Mickey is just a loon. Billy Loomis for me, and again, maybe it's just the way that Skeet plays him. You look at him and you're actually afraid, and he does everything in a so blasé way, like, I'm a killer and yeah, I'm cool. And the way he delivers his lines to Sydney, you're like, how have you hidden this complete psychotic behavior away from the world? Because when he reveals why he does it, you're like, wow, he's been a psycho for a long time, and he's waited a long time, and he's the original killer. He killed the mother, and he leads Stu as well. So for me, it's like that whole alpha male. He's like proper taking control. And there's a little bit of I'm not saying just because he's a guy that he's scary, but he has that demeanor where you think, shit, if I was in a room with him, I've had it. So he brings that, like, I'm going to kick your ass type of attitude without being overly 6 foot tall and stocky, if you know what I mean. So I think for him to do that shows me that he's a fantastic Ghostface. And all the way through the film as well, there's subtle hints, and he carries himself so well. Yeah, that's the reason I've put him at number 1. And he's the OG, so obviously that's not the main reason, but
Okay,
Yeah.
well, how I would describe Billy Loomis and why he's my number 3 is I actually agree with you when you say he's genuinely scary. I don't know if there's any other killer on this list that is genuinely scary in the same way that Billy is. And that's crazy to think that like once the mask comes off, that like we haven't had a killer that is genuinely terrifying, like just as a person, just as a presence, just like as a menacing. You know, there have been crazy killers and there have been emotional killers and effective killers for other reasons, but like he is genuinely terrifying. Like there's something dark in his soul that radiates from Skeet the actor to the viewer, and it's very effective. And you know, Billy deserves to be high up here because the whole movie in some ways is built around his relationship with Sydney and this idea of is he the killer, isn't he the killer? I mean, like that is, you know, it's set out basically almost from the first scene. I think that like, you know, even from like her bedroom scene, you know, after Casey Becker is killed, we're led to believe is Billy the killer, you know, because there's a conflict there. And then whenever he jumps through the window, of course, you know, later on after she's been called and chased, it's obvious that he's the killer. And there's almost this weird thing that happens where it's like the audience, like deep down, we all know that he's the killer deep down, but we don't want to believe it because we want what's best for Sydney. And I just think that he's a very cool killer because of how important he is to the plot. And I think the other time a killer has been so important to the plot has been, of course, Jill Roberts, you know? So I think that that is part of why Billy is so successful as a killer, in addition to just being a menacing presence. The thing that I like about him too is like he has an entire world out there that exists beyond just the two dimensions of this movie. And you kind of got into it, like this idea that like this psychopath has been brewing and stewing and being created over years and years. You know, the fact that he has such an effective motive, that also aids Billy Loomis. Like it's not just having a beef with Sydney because she won't have sex with him. It's because of the mom, you know, and because of Sydney's mom, and tying that all together. Like that I love that. The reveal of Billy, you know, not just being a crazy boyfriend, but actually having this deep thing that has been the B plot this whole time through watching Scream 1, which is tying back to Maureen Prescott. That's brilliant, and I love that so much. So
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And you said it, you know, that every other killer, when they're revealed, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're still good, but there's nothing menacing about them in comparison to Billy. And what I love about Billy is if you look at all the other killers, there is a slight, I mean, this is my opinion, there's something about them that sometimes goes slightly over the top. Whereas with Billy, if you look at the entire finale, he's calm and collected. And even when he's angry, it's not like, you know, scale 10, it's like a collected kind of where he's actually angry, you know, not cartoonish or anything like that. And even the scene where he's searching for Sydney around the house, the look in his eyes, it's just so psychotic, but grounded at the same time. I know that doesn't make sense. It's almost a contradiction. But when I've watched it so many times that I'm like, yeah, that's a guy you do not want to be in a room with because he's got a lot on his mind. And even the dialogue delivery where he says to her, you know, we killed your mum a year ago today, congratulations and all of that. It's so calm and cold that it brought shivers the first time. I remember thinking, wow, this guy is just a horrible person.
You know, and the other thing is like you brought up like the cool factor. Billy Loomis has a cool factor in a way that almost I don't think any other character on this list. That's part of the appeal of Billy Loomis, right? And why we're suspicious of him from the get-go, and why it's almost inevitable that he's the killer.
Yeah, 100%.
And the last thing I'll say about Billy is like, you know, I love the fact that he has, as going back to like his entire like worldview, I love that he has so many threads going on. You know, not only, you know, he has his mom, he has Sydney's mom, he has his dad, he has Sydney, he has Stu, he has Christina. You know, there's so much going on there, right? And I just think that is why he is such an effective killer, because we can believe that his motive is actually grounded in the reality of like all of these forces kind of colliding and him carrying out this revenge plot in a frustrated way. So now as we move to Stu Macher, I just want to like note about you know, the Scream 1 killers. I think in general, I think of all the killers are the people we see in the first, you know, 80% of the movie before the reveal. I feel like Billy and Stu, they're the only ones that are kind of the same people once the reveal happens. It's just there's been a switch that's been flipped where they're going from good to evil. But Billy has his same attitude that you kind of documented, which is very, you know, consistent and calm and whatever. And whereas Stu, he's the same playful, energetic, and animated guy that we saw in the first, you know, the first part of the movie. In the finale, again, he's just gone from bad to good. And I think that is also what makes them so memorable as killers, is that they are so well defined before and after.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I feel a bit guilty having Stu at like number 6, right? Because what I've done is I've color coded mine. You can't see it. And there's like an A list of killers, B list, C list, and a final list. And Stu is at that top tier with the top 6 killers that I've put down.
I want to know, like, Stu, because that is pretty low for Stu. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, surprised. Like, you have Mickey at 4, but Stu at 6. So,
Yeah.
like, and we'll talk about Mickey then, but like, why is Stu so low?
The reason I've put Stu, all the listeners are going to start throwing stuff at the radio or whatever they're listening on their phone. But the thing with the top 6 killers, Stu to me seems like a follower, right? Whereas the others above them, in my opinion, have gone and kind of orchestrated something. Even Mickey, I mean, if you look at it, Mickey kind of does all the heavy lifting, whereas Stu is kind of just like the Robin to the Batman. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I've always found Stu slightly annoying, and he's iconic, and I love Matthew Lillard. I think nobody else could have played this character any better, and I love the switch because he's comedic all the way through it, and he still brings that into the big reveal at the end. I mean, when Sid runs away from Billy and bumps into him, Ryan, I remember in the cinema, May 1997, I was 17 years old. That's when it came out in the UK, and I went, thank God Stu's there. He's going to save her. And when he brought that little voice changer up to his mouth, and I was honestly, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, him too? How can he be a killer? I think the fact that it was 2 killers was genius. So yeah, I just have Stu below the likes of Mrs. Loomis and Mickey just for that one reason. And that's all. I mean, it's literally like if I was to give Mickey, I don't know, a 9.8, Stu would be a 9.7. It's a very small margin. I love Stu. And for all the Stu stands out there, I think he's great. But yeah, that literally is the only reason that I put him below Mickey. And to be honest with you, I don't find Stu scary. Even when he's chasing Sydney, I always felt that Sydney would overpower Stu. I never thought she would with Billy. So
It does, but I disagree with you. I actually do find him scary in an unhinged way. Like from the moment, the moment you just talked about with like where he says surprise Sydney with the voice changer I was actually genuinely scared of him there in the kitchen whenever he's like over Billy. Whenever he brings the dad out, from the basement, all duct taped, I was, and whenever he at the very end is like, dashes into Sydney and they're tumbling over each other, and then right before, I've always had a thing for you, so like I do find him genuinely scary in those moments.
yeah, he's definitely unhinged. He definitely is. But I don't know. I just found that, and again, I've been scrutinizing it maybe far too much. Because I had to obviously justify why he's so low, because I know how iconic he is. And that was my main reason. When I looked at everything that you've just referenced, all those little scenes, yeah, he's great in them. But again, it's like he is just following orders. It's not like you're about to say something. I can tell you're ready with some ammunition right now.
No, I agree with you. He is kind of like, if there's anything I would say that's a weakness of Stu, is that he is kind of Billy's sidekick in a way, because Billy, almost the entire motive is on Billy in a way. But I will say, in Stu's defense, I think that of all of the killers, where there's multiple killers, which is every movie except for Scream 3, I think the teamwork in Scream 1 between Billy and Stu is the best here.
No other set of killers works this well. Like, it literally is teamwork. I get that, And Stu, the fact that Stu can just come behind whilst Sydney is trapped in that corner and put his chin on Billy's shoulder. I know that people are like, ooh, this is something else going on here. But it just shows me that there is a partnership going on, even though Billy is a leader. But it just shows the dynamics of them and how they work well as a team.
Well, so here's what I'm going to say. While I agree with you that he is more of a sidekick in some ways, you could look at Scream 1 in 2 different ways. You can look at it from the purely personal motive, which is Billy having a specific beef about Maureen Prescott and about his family and blah, 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 blah. There's that, and that makes sense. And Stu doesn't have a personal motive that is comparable, but you can also look at Scream 1 as being like these 2 teenage boys who carry out this killing spree against their girlfriends. And in that respect, I will say that Stu makes more sense. And in a way, more of Stu's agenda gets carried out anyway. So like, let's just think, Casey is one of Stu's exes, Tatum is one of Stu's girlfriends. And like, let's just say Stu wants to kill Sydney because he is in love with Billy Loomis. So if we get rid of Sydney, that works for him too. So that's all part of the Stu agenda. I'm not saying that they're gay, but I'm just saying, there is that homoerotic thing about them that people have talked about, that people have fetishized. Do I think that they're gay? I don't know, but it's still there. It's still part of this mosaic that more of Stu's agenda does get carried out. And I will say this too. I actually think that Stu is actually a better killer in the Ghostface costume than Billy is. Billy, I think, is the mastermind, whereas Stu really is the heavy lifting. I think that he's actually, I don't want to say underrated as a killer, but like I have grown to appreciate and respect Stu in a way that I never have in 5 years of this podcast.
Yeah, same. I mean, at one point, I didn't even like Stu. So I say that the podcast and when I listen to people talk about him, it does give me this appreciation. But that was me because I was so fixated on how great Billy was. It kind of made me, push Stu to the side. But the more I talk about Stu, like even today, I'm like, oh, he's at number 6. Should I push him up? But then I think, no, I do. There's just stuff about Mickey and Mrs. Loomis that we'll talk about that makes me just put them slightly above. But he really is top tier killer. So,
well, and I will just say, so he is my number 5. So me overreacting to you, being like, oh, how dare you put him at number 6? But,
yeah.
Because he's been my number 6 for a long time. I used to rank Mickey above him, but he's my number 5, and I will say that Matthew brings so much life to the character that's written on the page, which, in fairness, is pretty flat. But Matthew and all of the creativity that he does and like the animation that he does makes him really special. He makes Stu both unpredictable but also pathetic, and I just think that's a really fun place for a Ghostface character to be in. And, I've never had a Stu phase, but because he is so intertwined with Scream 7 in a way, I'm starting to become intrigued by him, which is why I have him at number 5, planted clearly above Mickey. But yeah, in my mind, Stu and Mickey have always kind of been in competition with each other because they are both the sidekick killer. They are the non-Loomis, non-personal killer who carry out most of the killings and are the muscle behind the Loomis family brains, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Perfect.
So let's move over to Mickey then. So Mickey is ranked number 4 for you and number 6 for me. So Amar, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so I put Mickey above Mrs. Loomis and just below Roman because what Mickey does a lot of the heavy lifting. I know that Mrs. Loomis claims to have killed Randy, but with Mickey, what I loved was, we talk about Stu being quite unhinged. Well, look at Mickey. I mean, he's literally the sympathetic friend that is there with Hallie, has a little laugh, and, has a little comforting chat with Sydney after the attack at the sorority house. And yeah, the problem with Mickey only is that he does disappear for a bit, his main character. Obviously, as a Ghostface, he's there. But towards the end, when he reveals himself, the first time I watched that, I thought it was ridiculous. I thought he was over the top. He was pathetic. I didn't really rate him. Mrs. Loomis was far better. But the more I've seen Mickey, the more I started to appreciate how psychotic he really is and how psychotic his motive is. And the fact that he does literally in that Ghostface costume do almost everything. Yeah, we've got the big chase, with Gale, that it's not him. But overall, I find his switch between caring friend to complete loon, it's masterful because he really hides being a psycho so well. But look at Billy Loomis. When you watch Billy Loomis, there's traits of him. You can see that, he is a bit of a dark character here. But with Mickey, it's a complete change. And we speak about, at the end that people go over the top. I think Mickey, or I forgot the name of the actor, Timothy. Timothy does it so well because you have to be a bit crazy and be slightly over the top. And he does it perfectly, in my opinion. And I've seen the performance over and over again. And it's made me appreciate how good he is at playing this psycho, and even his dialogue delivery and some of the sentences that he uses, it's just so well done. And again, I'll go back to that point. As a Ghostface, he is brutal.
Well, and I agree with you about that. And the thing is, I used to be a bigger fan of Mickey when it came to Stu versus Mickey, like that head-to-head match, because my top 4 are pretty solid. But I've always had Stu and Mickey in competition with each other. And for me, Mickey always edged out because he, like you said, he objectively has the bigger body count in Scream 2 than Mrs. Loomis or Billy or Stu, right? So he has like a physical quality that is really important to being a Ghostface, but he has a big motive as it pertains to being, the sequel, the representation of the sequel, and the sequel being bigger and better than the first. You have that, but also you have this like weird, like public political media spectacle that he wants to create by being a Ghostface killer and carrying out these attacks that is truly original, unlike anything else that we've seen from a Ghostface killer. And I think that a lot of people would say, well, this is the type of motive that we should want in new Ghostfaces that aren't just defined by revenge of some sort, that there's some kind of originality for it. And I'm not sure if like younger kids could really understand just how interesting Mickey's point of view is compared to people who were alive in the 90s, people who kind of get the social purity that, Bob Dole on the witness stand, in my defense, like that is kind of, there's a lot of depth there that really clicks into the time. I do think Timothy Olyphant does a great job whenever he's acting in the finale as the killer. But for me, he does kind of suffer because Mrs. Loomis and Debbie Salt and Laurie Metcalf upstage him and kind of steal the thunder of his arc, in the arc of the movie. Like, he kind of gets his moment, and then when Debbie Salt comes in, that's like, okay, we're here. We've arrived at the real part of the Scream 2 finale. So, there's that. But like, my biggest thing with Mickey is, the biggest thing that I love about him, and the biggest thing that I don't like about him, is I most love about him is the way that he plays with Sidney's mind. He's a very psychological killer in the same way that Roman is. Like, Mickey walked so Roman could run, in the way that they play with Sidney's mind and kind of psychologically torment her. So I love that. However, I will say that this never used to be a problem for me, but for some reason it has become a huge one, which is the fact that he leaves the movie in the cafeteria scene and we don't see him at all from there through the finale. So the cafeteria scene happens around minute 50, and then he takes the mask off about minute 95. That's 45 minutes of the film. That's almost half of the film, at least a third, almost a half, where he isn't involved. Some people, whenever I've watched Scream 2 with them, don't remember who Mickey was because it's just been so long since we last saw him. So I do think that's a problem for me. So that's his big flaw as a killer, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but then we could counterattack that and say, well, that's because he's just killing people. He's literally, I get it. I get what you're saying, and I'm just trying to be pedantic here, but yeah, you're right. I can't even come back and say, well, no. But to say that, I'm surprised that people are like, well, I just seen a film and I forgot who Mickey was. Come on, he's got such a presence all the way up until that cafeteria scene. And I get that he disappears. But if we're looking at this as a whole person and character, then in between him missing as Mickey, he is Ghostface, and he's killing people left, right, and center and doing a good job of it as well. So I had to give him that, because generally I would normally put Mrs. Loomis above Mickey. But when I was scrutinizing it last night, I said, no, Mickey's presence, Mickey's body count, Mickey's transformation, and motive. You hit the nail on the head. I remember somebody saying back then, well, that's a rubbish motive. And I'm like, well, no, it's not, because look at all the killers that have come before him in American history alone. And look how they're almost put on this pedestal. And I watched something recently, a few months back, about Ted Bundy, and how all the women were like, and they knew he's a serial killer, and he was getting all these women sending him stuff in prison. And Mickey was kind of trying to say that, look, I want to be famous because these killers, without saying it, all these killers have come before me. So his motive is pretty crazy, but pretty unique, like you said.
So let's move on now to his counterpart, who is Nancy Loomis. Amar, you have her ranked at number 5. I have her at number 4. What are your thoughts?
I love Mrs. Loomis, but you know how you say that, okay, she gets a big finale. I get that. But then she's kind of missing throughout the film. She's just literally this background character that's just there to you find annoying. And I've already said that Mickey switches between this compassionate friend to this absolute psycho. Well, Mrs. Loomis does the same thing. She acts as something that she's not. Just imagine you're there and everyone that you want to kill is within arm's reach. So she does a great job. The only reason I've put her slightly below Mickey is that it is a bit theatrical at the end. And her body count is obviously not as good. She's hardly in the film until the big finale. I mean, her dialogue and her one-liners are fantastic, and her confrontation with Gail is brilliant. But, what makes Mrs. Loomis so great is the finale, is the connection with Billy Loomis, is the fact that her motive is revenge, and she's got nothing more to do. And the fact that she does kill Randy. I mean, anyone that kills Randy needs to get some brownie points for that, because what a great character and the way it's done. Yeah, is it believable? But hey, but she also is the one that's in the chasing Gail, so I gave her props for that. But Nancy Loomis in the end is brilliant, and I love that it's theatrical. But it does get slightly over the top in the end, and that's why I bumped her down one. But I really have no complaints against her. I'm just trying to pick something to show why I've put her at number 5 and not at number 4. I do love that, she goes toe-to-toe with Sidney, or Sidney fights her off. But in reality, I mean, you look at it, how has she managed to evade Sidney? How does, is she... I'm just trying to think of a reason why she wouldn't have been caught out beforehand. Or, how has she managed to overpower Randy? I mean, I'm looking at reasons to say, well, this is why she's not great, but technically she is. I mean, I'm going back on myself, but Mrs. Loomis has nothing wrong with her. She's fantastic. But I just feel that even at the end, when she's fighting, I mean, she is crazy when she's chasing Sidney, and I'm like, wow, get out of the way, Sidney, because this woman is going to cut you down. And that's just the power of a mother who wants revenge for her son being killed. It doesn't matter. And I love the line that she says to Sidney, if you want to blame anyone, blame your mother. And even then, Sydney's like, wow, because Sydney knows that this is the truth. So yeah, I mean, Debbie Salt is a fantastic character. Nancy Loomis and Laurie Metcalf. I mean, who would have thought that the woman from Roseanne and Toy Story, Andy's mom, would have been such a great psychotic killer at the end?
Well, and see, you kind of used like this idea of her being a background character against her. Whereas Mickey, I view them completely differently. Mrs. Loomis, the point of her, the genius of her is the fact that she is a background character who just turns out to be Ghostface. And she's a memorable background character, and we see her throughout. Whereas Mickey, he is presented as part of the friend group. He's presented as a figure along with Randy and Hallie and Derek. Whereas Mrs. Loomis, she is just the annoying reporter that pops up, here and there and there and here and there, and to kind of give Gale Weathers a reflection of herself. So that is like her purpose. And I think that like having somebody who, and to use my friend Zach Cherry's words, like hidden in plain sight, that is Nancy Loomis. And that's what makes her reveal as a killer so cool and great. And I do love, I know the thing I like about Mrs. Loomis, despite the personal motive, because like the personal motive is awesome. Like, my top 4 people on this list are people who have personal beef or have a personal tie or blood connection or exchange bodily fluids with Sidney Prescott. Like, I love Ghostface killers where it really is personal. And for Mrs. Loomis, it's very personal. I like that. But also, I'm going to take it a step further. Because she wants revenge, she's also kind of being very she's letting Mickey do all of the work in a way. She kind of wants to just be in and out. She wants to kill Sydney and Gale. She wants to have her revenge, but then leave without a trace. And everything that she does, every decision she makes is in service of that end, And the fact that Debbie Salt doesn't exist, the fact that she clearly just wants to target Sydney and Gale and then leave town and not get caught, whereas Mickey literally wants to get caught. So anyways, and I will say that Laurie Metcalf, of all of the people on this list, I think this is the best performance, just purely in terms of acting. Laurie Metcalf is excellent, and the way that she portrays camp has really never been conquered, in terms of making it sophisticated and effective. So she's obviously one of the most talented performers in the Scream franchise. I think she's the most talented performer on this list. And I imagine if we would have had this reveal with Debbie Salt as being the Ghostface with another actor, with a less capable actor, it wouldn't be as strong. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, when we were doing the ranking for the previous Scream characters and you were saying, yeah, you know what? You've changed my mind. Ryan, you've changed my mind. You know what? I can't believe I'm going to admit this. I'm going to put Mrs. Loomis above Mickey because, you're right. She does allow him to do all the heavy lifting and has a brilliant reason to literally, sidle out of there and say, well, I didn't exist, so no one knows who I am. Obviously, Sydney and Gale are just too smart for her in the end. But you're right, she is fantastic in everything she does. Laurie Metcalf, I've always been a fan from a long time, and it was a surprise. I get that what the hidden in plain sight is great because there's a scene where you see her approaching Gale for the first time. Go back and watch that, and there's traces of a psychotic woman in there. The way she's just lingering in the background. She times her, everything so well to quickly come up next to Gale. So yeah, you know what? I will put her at number 4. Let's change that around. But I'm keeping Stu at 6 and Mickey at 5 then.
Fair enough. And I think that's correct. And also just the idea of she smartly avoids Sydney because Sydney would know who she is more likely. I love the fact that she's the one killer who has completely changed her look, her appearance to blend in and not be found out by Sydney or to hide her identity even more. That's again, She had a plan. She had a very clear mission, and she was trying to take the path of least resistance. And that's why also she let Mickey do most of the killing, is so that she, that her hands were technically clean for the most part. And the only person she actually killed was Randy, because he was insulting Billy because he was part of the team that took Billy down. So it makes all the sense.
And I want to just add as well that she is so brutal because once she uses Mickey, she literally gets rid of him, So she was tying up all the loose ends.
Awesome. Well, let's now move on to the last killer in the original trilogy. And honestly, talking about these killers is so much fun because there's so much to them. And again, I hope and pray that Kevin Williamson kind of reinstates this quality of killer in the Wes Craven films into Scream 7 because, I think that part of the thing that makes a Scream movie really great and legendary is being able to go back and discuss the killers and see how important they are to the narrative. They aren't just something to fill the void in the finale, which is how I feel both Scream 5 and 6 kind of treated their killers. I'm going to take Roman first just because he is my boy.
I knew it. I was like, I hope, and I really wanted you to. I was like, I hope he does. So there you go. The floor is yours, Ryan.
I'm also taking Jill first, so Amar, you can suck it.
Oh my God, yeah.
Roman Bridger, oh my God, of course he's my OG. I am Mr. Scream 3, but also I don't think you have to rank Scream 3 as your favorite sequel or favorite film in the franchise to put him up front. For me, there is a huge intimate connection with Sidney in the finale, more so than any other killer, and it's one that takes many different forms between the reveal, the playfulness between Nev and Scott, the fight, and then the emotional ending. I don't know, I just feel like of all of the killers, like this was the most intimate setting. I also think the fact that he's working alone is something that's very much to his benefit as a legendary Ghostface killer and as somebody who is interacting with Sidney Prescott, the final girl, in the finale. Even though Roman doesn't get a ton of screen time in the first, 80% of the movie, he's still spread out pretty well, unproportionally. And we see him a little bit in each stage of the movie. And I love the fact that he allows himself to kind of do the Billy Loomis thing, which is kind of show he's a suspect and then everyone just kind of acknowledge that he couldn't be the killer because he has an alibi or he has whatever. So he's taken off the suspect list early on with the Sarah Darling thing. I think that's really smart. But for me, what has always been a defining thing for Roman is the fact that he is so many things to the Scream franchise, to Scream 3. He is, I love the idea of like the director of Stab 3, the director symbolism, kind of like the person who's in charge, the head honcho, kind of like setting in motion a vision. So there's that symbolism that's important. But also he is the mastermind. He is the brother of Sidney. He is the son of Maureen Prescott. And that, again, very emotional, very intimate. But I also like the way that he uses technology. I love the voice changer. I love the idea of the bulletproof vest and how he uses these things to ensure his survival and make him a smarter, more strategic, more difficult to take down Ghostface. And like he has a plan. Like he has thought through everything he needs to do, all of his steps, 1, 2, and 3. Not only that, but he also thinks through his victim's mindset and like what they would do, step 1, step 2, step 3, specifically Sidney. And that's kind of the war that I love in Scream 3 is like, who is getting the upper hand? Is it Roman or is it Sidney? Who is 2 steps ahead of whom, right? So there's that, but also he puts Sidney through a lot of psychological pain, using the voice changer, using the Stab 3 set in a way that like really makes her more vulnerable, but also makes her a bit of a scrappier fighter too. So we love that. And I love the fact that he is the solo killer and he has objectively the most kills of anybody in the franchise. And he just kind of makes sense as a Ghostface killer in terms of like his stature, the way that he's built, so there's that. But, for me, the thing that really kicks Roman into high gear is the motive. It's not just the fact that he's the brother who, wants Sidney to be dead. The way that Roman sees Sidney is he sees Sidney as stealing something from him that he never had. So, there is the abandonment issues that come with being the son of Maureen Prescott or the son of a parent who declines your existence, who declines, to have a relationship with you. Like that's painful enough. But I think that the reason Roman really goes after Sidney over such a long period of time is because he feels like Sidney had something that he didn't, which is the life of like a happy kid, right? And with his actions here, that's not something he can get back. But, through like this plot he has been the mastermind for, which is to kill Maureen Prescott, Sidney has accumulated all this fame and fortune. And I feel like what he's doing with Scream 3 is he feels like, oh, Sidney, you took something away from me with the childhood. So I'm going to take something away from you, which is the fame and this image as the hero. And that's pretty dark. Like the idea of like feeling like you need to take something away from somebody else to satisfy your own needs and scars. That's really devastating, in a lot of ways. And it's very sad. And I think the last thing I'll say here is like, the sadness is kind of the defining thing about the Scream 3 finale. It's not just the sensational fireworks. There's a lot of empathy that comes through between Sidney and Roman in a weird, twisted way that really makes me love him. Like for me, there's no alternative. Even if Roman isn't like the best written outside of the world of the finale of Scream 3, I could never not put him first. So, Amar?
I don't think you took a breath then. I was listening to you and I was like, wow, you were so passionate about, talking about Roman Bridger as your number one. I mean, you made me almost love him more than everybody else on the list just by listening to what you had to say about him. And I agree with literally everything you said. The guy he's the mastermind. I mean, you've not left anything for me to say now because you said it all, but I'm going to quickly go and reiterate everything. So the fact that he is the mastermind, behind Billy Loomis is what makes me love him so much. The fact that he's a solo killer and he's not working with anyone makes me appreciate all the things that he does. And it was you that first mentioned this many, many months ago, maybe a couple of years ago, that Roman Bridger technically is the one that messes with Sydney's mind the most. And you have to give him credit for that because he really, he gets her, he's the one that gets her hiding in the first place. And then he's the one that pulls her straight out of it. Because he knows how to get under her skin. He knows he's so relentless in his pursuit for Sidney Prescott. And the fact that he, like you said, goes and uses Sarah Darling as a way to frame himself, but then also get him out of it. When throughout that entire film, and again, I go back to the first time I watched Scream 3, when I was watching it and, you thought, oh, it's him. Oh, and of course it's not him because the voice changer has been used and it tricks the audience's mind so well that you think, well, it can't be him. Because they wouldn't use him as the killer because we've already seen that bit happen. And then when he dies, or you think he's dead, you think, well, it's definitely not him. But what I love about Scott Foley's performance is how he's not a caricature of a character. He's quite comedic without being comedic, if you know what I mean. He's almost this jittery character who's trying to make a movie and his movie's being shut down and you're quite sympathetic towards him. And then when it's revealed to be the killer and you find out what's going on, and I've seen so many people complain about that plot twist. That, oh, that's rubbish. Scream 3 has got a long-lost brother of Sydney. And I'm like, but no, it's genius because it makes sense. And it ties in Scream 1 and Scream 2 so well and wraps up that entire Maureen Prescott trilogy really well. And I didn't appreciate the whole hand-holding thing until you implanted that in my head. And it makes so much sense because Sydney is sympathetic and she does understand what's happening here. And I used to moan about how whingy Roman is. But now when I look back at it, I'm like, but he has a right to be. That's who he believes. This woman has stolen my life. I've been this abandoned child, this woman that doesn't want me, and this stepsister or half-sister that's living a life that I should have had. And it doesn't matter how old you get, especially guys. I can say that because I'm a guy. Men are just big babies that want attention, right? And that's basically what he was looking for. He wanted that motherly love. He wanted that family. And rightly so in his mind, somebody else has taken it. And it is crazy that you would want to take something from someone else, but try to put yourself in his shoes. He is a crazy person. He's killing people to make his own movie, a life that he never had. I do still think that it's hilarious that when he pulls off his mask, it's the only time Sydney's looked at the killer and said, sorry, who are you?
Part of the genius is the fact that, again, you want to talk about Debbie Salt being invisible and trying to get away with it. The fact that Roman kind of hid from Sydney, he pulled her out of hiding to get her where he wanted her to be. But but there's no trace of them interacting beforehand or Roman giving Sydney a hint of who he actually was. You know what I mean? To all work towards his plan of being
100%. And I think that's the genius of it because he's the only killer that reveals himself where Sydney says, I don't know who you are. And he's the only killer she feels most connected to at the end. The fact that she manages to hold his hand in his dying moments, the fact that she says we think alike, we are siblings after all, and like you said, that intimate connection is definitely there. And the reason I love him is because he's the one that gives Sydney the best battle at the end. Literally, they're just going for it. The conversation with F you, right back at each other. And I didn't appreciate Roman because I've always latched onto that. He's just a whiny character. He's just complaining, him on him sort of thing. And yeah, you're right. He does he is stretched. I was about to moan about it because I was about to say, well, wait a minute. You had to go at Mickey for, missing from a chunk, but Roman's missing for ages, but he is spread out. So I'll give him that. And the only reason I don't have him above Billy is just for that, OG threatening factor. Yeah, he's crazy. And, people were going to go on to Jill, I'm sure, but there's just, and again, it's a very small margin between Billy, Jill, Roman, Mrs. Loomis. They're all so good. The one thing I will say about Roman is that he's the only killer technically that you actually sympathize with.
Exactly.
I know it's crazy to think that, but when you listen to what he says and everything, and you try to put yourself in his shoes and you think, okay, if I'd have had that, I probably wouldn't turn into a psycho killer and just kill everyone, but I would be that angry I would be bent for revenge. I would want her to, suffer because you've taken the life that I should have had.
Let's also he remember the fact that this is his birthday. He kind of orchestrates all of this to be centered around him in some way, and like also the fact that he faked his own death. I know that some people, aren't convinced by Gale checking his pulse. I don't give a shit what you think. I think it's still a brilliant move to kind of take himself out of the suspect list and kind of carry on as the killer, as in his role. So I think there's so much of his agenda here that is strategically placed. And again, I'm so glad that you agree with me about like the finale and like the connection between Sydney and Roman and how important that is. Like, despite her not knowing him, they go so deep in just those 15 minutes. And there's a line from the extended cut of Scream 3, the assembly cut, where it's Roman says to her on the phone, "The killer is a dark reflection of the hero." I love that line, and it's so true about what Scream 3 is going for in terms of Sydney and Roman. So
yeah, 100%, 100% agree.
Okay, let's move on to Jill. So I'm going to take this one too and just kind of differentiate the two because, Jill Roberts, I think like objectively, you could look at her and say she is the best killer just because, I mean, of the way that Scream 4, and it's never happened before in a Scream movie where the movie takes on the perspective of the killer. Jill takes over the movie in a way that like, as though she was the protagonist. She's almost like fulfilling the prophecy of becoming the remake main character in a way. She could be the best. She would be the best, if not for my thing with Roman that I just described. And I think that like the difference between Jill and Roman and why I put Roman just a bit above Jill is because I think that Roman and Sydney, they balance off each other incredibly, whereas Jill is incredible on her own in terms of carrying out her plan and in terms of the self-mutilation, in terms of framing Trevor and going on to be the victim and pose herself as the next generation of the Stab universe. And like, beyond that, with Jill, you have like her really deep meaning about like philosophically about the remake versus the original and kind of like what she's trying to do and how she deploys carrying out her plan against Sydney and tricking Sydney as pretending to be her vulnerable, innocent cousin. I do think that the deleted scenes shape her really, really well and lay an impressive groundwork for the finale that I wish would have been included in the final movie. That's also part of like why I think that she's number 2 for me over Roman. But she has incredible one-liners. She dominates the film like no other person has ever dominated a Scream movie besides Neve Campbell or Courtney Cox. And, she's funny, she's daring, she's shocking. She has an enormous amount of screen time. I find her hilarious. I find her sick. And she has lots of kills, inside the costume and outside the costume. She has everything. So, Amar, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you said. I will say that of all the motives for me, Jill's is the most genius. I mean, it's an extension kind of Mickey's. The thing is that Mickey just wanted to get caught. She clearly doesn't. But even if you look at everything today, it's so apt with social media and the 15 minutes of fame. And the thing about Jill I love is that how twisted she is. Kills her own mother just to stay true to the original. I mean, she states that herself. And I'll never understand people complaining about Emma Roberts' performance. I don't get it. I don't understand what issue people have with her, because I think the first half of the film where she is this, she's supposed to be this new protagonist and this new final girl, and there's that innocent quality about her that Sydney had in the first one. That's what they're trying to showcase. And when she reveals who she is, I think it's fantastic. It's such a twisted moment. I love the way that she presents herself. I love that she's just ruthless in everything, shooting her boyfriend, where it hurts. And the finale bit is just, you have to be an absolutely bonkers character to do that, but at the same time, so smart to realize what you're doing, because you're literally pulling your own hair and stabbing your own chest and jumping on a table and smashing yourself to pieces because you want to show the world this is who I am. It's just unfortunately that for her plan gets foiled, but there is nothing there that Jill does. There isn't genius. Twisted, sick and crazy, but absolutely fantastic. And the reason I put her slightly above Roman is because of her motive and the fact that she's this, in theory, she is this petite girl, that realistically wouldn't be able to carry all this out, and yet she does, even in the costume. And she's, we say that Roman is a mastermind, and even Billy was, but so is Jill. If anything, Jill is probably a better mastermind because she manipulates Charlie so well. And, she's just, I think the fact that she's brutal in her side of her Ghostface costume is what makes me, and I said before that Billy is scary, but if you look at Emma's performance, there are times where you think if I was in a room with her, she would kick my ass too, because she's going for it. Nothing is going to stop her from becoming this new hero.
Again, too, like, the thing about why she's so brilliant is that she technically is the closest one to achieve her goal. Technically, she does achieve it. She gets all of the reporters to say that she was this hero. She gets her 15 minutes of fame. That's something that no killer has ever gotten before. She does get away with it for a hot second until Sidney Prescott stops her. And I can't imagine how annoyed as shit she was, walking from her hospital room to Sidney's hospital room, knowing that she's still alive.
Well,
but,
you could tell. She literally says it, don't you ever die, what are you made of?
Well, I think that of all of the killers too, so I mean, like, you can't discount the fact that she does literally get away with it, even for a brief moment, which is something that no other killer has ever been able to accomplish. But she's also the most committed. I mean, no one throws themselves through a glass coffee table and stabs themselves in a million different ways except for Jill. You know what I mean? Like, Jill is so committed to her cause and to her plan. And again, her motive is such a breath of fresh air that it still gives people the zazazoo today. It's a very personal killer because she's related to Sidney, and she's kind of the next generation of Sidney, and Sidney has connected with her outside of the Ghostface finale, where she's, I know how you feel. So whenever she is revealed, it hurts, in the same way that it hurts with Roman. So I love that it's similar to Roman, but different,
Yeah, and you've literally said what I was going to say, but I'll quickly add that I remember 11 when we watched it, and there was a friend that I was in college with, so we became friends just because of Scream. And at this point, he and I had kind of, because he went off to do his own thing, but we were still in contact with each other. And I remember he called me up and he said, "Have you seen Scream 4?" And I was like, "Duh, of course I have." And he said to me, he goes, "What a brilliant motive that is. How have they come up with something like that?" Because he said to me, he goes, "People won't appreciate that motive, but it's very, very unique and very, very clever." And when you look at other horror films since and before then, nothing, everything is about revenge or you did this to me, but she's literally come up with a motive where you think she's so right. I mean, like I said, again, it's twisted, but she is so right. And you said you hit the nail on the head. Of course, there's that personal connection with them. So when she pulls off her mask, you can see, I think that's the most shocked Sydney has been, more so than her boyfriend. Because she suspects her boyfriend at the beginning, like, oh, he could be the killer. But with Jill, that's my baby cousin that I'm here to protect. She literally comes back to Kirby's house just to protect her cousin. And it turns out her cousin was the killer all along.
You elicited Charlie's name earlier, so let's talk about him, because he is Jill's henchman in a way. And like, I don't know. So you've had kind of a evolution with Charlie, it seems, going from number 11 to number 7. Hit me with it, Amar.
Yeah, look, okay, I see. Charlie Walker as a character annoys me. He always does. All the stuff leading up to, the finale. It's just like, come on, I could slap you around myself. And I just find that there was something sleazy about him. But, anyway, what I've realized is that you have to give Charlie credit because, for me, hands down, he is responsible for the most brutal death, in my opinion, in the entire franchise. He does everything for the love of his life, apparently. That's what he thinks she is. And, if we think that Stu is the sideman, he's definitely the sidekick, but he gets done over quite badly. And still, he manages to go throughout that entire film. And he is, to say that he's such a short character and he's not a stocky guy, he comes across as a very brutal Ghostface, and probably the most brutal in my opinion. I know they talk about 5 and 6 being really, bloody and everything, but Charlie Walker, to say that, okay, Roman Bridger we can move Roman to the side, and this is why I've put Charlie below Roman, because Roman single-handedly killed everyone himself, we know that. But Charlie Walker does so much heavy lifting that he needs to be commended. He literally goes out there and he kills everyone, in a really brutal fashion. And he is quite a master manipulator because his best friend doesn't know, that he's a killer. He manages to get Kirby. She actually runs out to him, and I don't know how he's hiding that knife, but he stabs her up. And even in that moment, you can hear how angry he is for being, ignored up until this point. And it's sad because that shows that these characters still, I know it's going to sound very deranged, but these characters still have some sort of humanity about them. I mean, they go about it all wrong. So I
But
have
that's
to
what we
give.
want, though, right? We want,
Yeah, of
we
course,
want them
yeah.
to be real people. We don't want them to be cartoons like the Bailey family. So I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's why Charlie Walker is, in retrospect, we can appreciate him because, oh wow, Rory Culkin was actually playing him like a real human being, like a real person.
Yeah.
He may be boring, he may not have a lot of impact, but there's at least depth there, and there's some interesting, like, dramatic work going on there underneath the surface. And, like, the fact that, like, he does have so many kills and there is so much violence at his hands, I think is, and like, I never even thought about that. The way he dupes Robbie, like, you have to have some kind of skill to do that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And that's why I think, he is a genius character overall. If you put him into this whole bubble and pick out everything, him as a student, him as a partner of this online group, and the fact that he's still very versed in the whole Scream universe. And he says some of the greatest lines, I mean, obviously the fountain scene was removed because of one of his lines, but, not to implicate him and all of this and sunset nudity for the change and stuff. And when I look back at Rory Culkin's performance, it's actually quite grounded. Yes, it is a bit boring. I get that, but that's only because I'm comparing him to other Ghostface killers. But I've never appreciated him as much. And then Ethan Landry came along and made me realize, wow, Charlie is fantastic. But no, I just think that as an overall package, he is pretty good. It's a shame because he then is killed at the end, much like Mickey, and then Jill upstages him big time, like Mrs. Loomis does. So that's taken away from him. But yeah, as a Ghostface, he's almost second to none.
Well, I guess Charlie Walker is having a real redemption story today on the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, because
100%.
like Amara has historically hated this guy. But I agree with everything that you said. And like, honestly, like even like his reveal and like his interaction with Kirby and his the way that he even that moment with him and Sydney at the top of the steps before Jill's reveal, that's really good. And like that's higher quality and better dramatic work than anything we see, frankly, in 5 or 6 from the killers interacting with the final girl. Charlie Walker, he's deserving of our respect. And I think it was easy to bag on him for a while when it was just the Wes Craven films. He is clearly the least interesting and the least impactful. So that's why I think everyone has like a knee-jerk reaction to just bag on him. But I think, post Radio Silence, we can look back and think, we didn't know what we had until it was gone.
Well, yeah, you're right, 100%. But even if we looked at just the original Wes Craven films, as a Ghostface, if we just rank people in a costume, he needs to be quite high up there because, even in the opening scene and then what he does to Olivia and even, at other places throughout the film, I'm trying to remember he's a Stabathon guy, right? Yeah. So you know what? He has some of the most iconic scenes and we have to give him credit.
Let's move on. So we have Amber Freeman and Richie Kirsch. Amber is number 8 for both of us. Richie is number 9 for you and number 10 for me. And honestly, he actually was number 9 for me, but I made the last minute switch to put his sister above him. It is what it is. But let's talk about them. Amar, what are your thoughts on Amber and Richie?
See, normally I prefer Richie in the finale over Amber. I always have done. I know you don't, but when it comes to overall character, I think she is just sneakier. She has the best kills. She does more of the heavy lifting in a Ghostface costume, and she's less whinier than Richie. I think that she is, again, quite a good Ghostface in the Ghostface costume. I mean, she takes out Dewey. So again, let's give her sad props for that. She kills one of the most iconic characters that have ever been killed in a Scream film. And the more I look back at Amber, the more I realize she's not as annoying. That whole, I mean, I know that everyone loves the bit with the knife and the eek when she was Sydney, but when I first saw that, I just thought it was just over the top, a bit crazy. But I actually like Mikey Madison's performance up until that point. Again, like with most Ghostfaces, she comes across as this really caring character. She's looking out for Tara and, she obviously doesn't like Sam for obvious reasons. She makes it known. And you start thinking, well, okay, there's a character. And she's very clever in that she tries to trick Sydney and Gail, but obviously they've been through this before, so they know it. Props for trying. And she has one of the most awesome reveals ever and kills one of your favorite characters on screen. So, when Liv gets shots in the head. So you've got to give her props for all of that.
So I agree with you, actually. I don't know. I do think she's very manipulative. I do think the reveal is very shocking and cute and original. I think the fact that she kills Dewey gives her major props. And I think you can look at Scream 5 in a lot of ways. And you're right, she does do the heavy lifting. Like it's her kind of like going after Tara because she has that weird relationship with her. It's her beef with Wes that's carried out. So I think there's a lot in here that is Amber coded. I think that Amber drives the movie as a killer more than Richie does, even if Richie gets more screen time outside of the costume. My problem with Amber is the fact that she is just a little bit too vague. There's no real specific motive with her, and that's a problem for me. And I don't know if she's defined, so much even before the finale or after the finale, outside of being Tara's weirdly protective friend and then a Stab fan. Like, that's all she is. And I just wish that there would have been more details about who she was. I will give her specific credit for the great fight with Sydney and Gale. Like, that is, as a killer versus final girls, like that's an amazing moment for her in a way that I don't feel like Richie. Whenever it's him versus Sam, it's all Sam. Whereas with Sydney and Gale, there is it's as much about them as it is about her. They balance off each other really well, which I think creates a really great scene.
But I think also in that finale, it shows how twisted her character is, because she still tries to be manipulative. When she's like, "Oh no, it wasn't me," and they're like, "Yeah, nice try," and then she switches, to try to get under Gale's skin to say, how he begged for his life or whatever the line was. I can't remember. But one of the funniest things is when they manhandle her and they smash the bottle into her face and she's like, "Fucking hand sanitizer." The fact that she still manages to be disappointed that that's what you hit me with, it's brilliant. I agree with you that she is a little bit vague, and realistically, she doesn't really have a motive. She's just, but then again, if we can accept that Stu, is following Billy, and then in the same way she is following Richie. So,
but Stu is defined much more. In
yeah.
his
Oh,
movie
of course. 100%
here.
100%. Yeah. I'm just trying to give her a few more brownie points. That's all.
Well,
because I used to hate on Amber. Even now, as a character overall, for some reason, I still prefer Richie. But when I think of her as a Ghostface and what she does and how she, like you said, she is manipulative and she is sneaky and she does a lot of the heavy lifting and she does kill Dewey, and there's loads to her off screen or behind the mask that she does that we have to take into account, I believe. So that's why I've got her. And we still have her above so many other killers, so she can't be that bad.
Exactly. And she is chaotic for better or for worse. I just wish she was a little bit more specified and less vague if she really wanted to compete in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, let's talk about Richie. For me, I think he's the most forgettable Ghostface. He is so boring. He's not scary. He barely does any of the killing himself. The only thing he has going for him is Jack Quaid having good chemistry with Melissa Barrera. And that's not even in the finale. That's like pre-finale. I find him so ineffectual in the finale. Sometimes I forget that he's a killer just because he's so forgettable. He doesn't even have like a grand specific motive. His motive is just a philosophy about toxic fans. And that to me is kind of boring. So I don't know. And going from that, I do think that the boyfriend as Ghostface trope is trite, unoriginal, and let's be real, it's kind of a letdown. And I don't think that Scream 5 justifies recycling it as a trope. I don't know. He has this weird sense of humor that I just don't jive with. I don't jive with the goofy, ooh, I'm such a nice guy, kind of millennial Gen Z kind of guy. It's just not my thing. I will say my favorite thing about him is the Joker laugh in his last moment before Sam stabs him. That's his only redeeming quality for me.
The fact that he gets that knife through his cheek, because you know what, as brutal as that is and as sadistic as that is, I've always said that a Ghostface killer that can go around killing and stabbing other people needs to get a taste of their own medicine. But no, the thing is, I agree with everything you said about Richie and even about Jack Quaid. I mean, I love him for who he is. The fact that he's Meg Ryan's son and everything, I think he gets a lot more work than is. I don't think he's the best actor in the world, to be honest with you. But I think I put him above everybody else is just because he does have a lot of screen time and he does act like I am this cute boyfriend that's not, I don't know anything about the stab world and stuff. And I get why it grates on your nerves. But for me, he gets more to do than anybody else that I've put on the list below me. And I don't find him as annoying as you do. I find that he has some redeeming qualities about the way he portrays this character. And in the end, yeah, he's not scary at all. In fact, you'd probably want to run from Amber than you would from Richie. But he still manages to, almost overpower everyone. And the fact that he gets a really nice sequence speaking to the main protagonist, Sidney Prescott. So that's the only reason I've put him up there. I mean, yeah, he's not special, but he's okay.
Let's talk about his family now and the killers in Scream 6. So the idea that I would put Quinn above Richie was kind of shocking to me until I did it. And then I was like, oh, this kind of makes sense. I guess I have this beef with Scream 6 where I want all of those killers to be lumped together at the very bottom. But I do think Quinn is kind of more interesting than Richie is. And I just think that I think that Liana Labarato, she makes a lot of good choices as an actress before the finale and after the finale. Like, notice some lines that were delivered in very unique ways that make me sit up and be like, that was interesting. I'm enjoying this, despite Quinn kind of being written in a very stereotypical, like sex positive kind of way. I find that she enhances the material both as like Quinn, the friend, the roommate, and Quinn, the crazy killer. Unfortunately, the writing doesn't allow her to go much farther than that, but I do find her at least memorable in a way. I don't find her to be cringy like I find the other two, I can't watch them without it hurting my eyes and my soul. So what are your thoughts on Quinn, Amar?
Right. Okay. So normally, as a character, I would normally put Quinn above both Detective Bailey and Ethan Landry. The reason I've put her at 11 is merely because of the stereotypical character, the fact that she has hardly any screen time. And yeah, she does a few kills here and there, but I just find that there's nothing to her. Even in the finale, what does she really do? She just comes there and reveals. Yeah, I love the way that is it Liana plays her. And, like you said, the choices she makes, the nuances, the subtlety, and it's not as over the top as the other two. But there's nothing to her before the finale, except a couple of lines that are quite funny and maybe at the end. But I just find that she doesn't really do a lot to justify being a cool Ghostface.
Right. And like I will say, like of the three here, she does the least amount in terms of like, even in the finale, she has the least amount of screen time compared to Jack Champion and Dermot Mulroney, which is a letdown because she's arguably the most interesting of the three. And the last thing I'll say about her, I like her death scene. And do I believe that Quinn actually killed Gail's boyfriend and injured her so badly? No, I don't believe that Quinn was able to pick up, a 210 muscly man and throw him through Gail Weathers' entertainment space. However, if you're telling me that was Quinn who was attacking Gail, she gets extra credit because that is by far the best sequence in the movie. So
Again, I agree with both points there because I said it earlier in the show where I said, well, some people had an issue and I tried to go on to that where, could Mrs. Loomis pull Randy into the van? Well, if she couldn't do that, then Quinn definitely couldn't kill Gail's boyfriend or, the way that she does. But hey, if she's chasing Gail around, then let's give her credit, where credit is due. But, she's just, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right words because I love her as a character. But when I put her as a full package, I think she's quite a weak Ghostface.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the other two here because it just keeps getting worse and worse. So Detective Bailey, I will say I love the idea of having a cop as a killer. It makes sense physically that someone like who is a cop who would be able to do all these things. So seeing him in the bodega and doing those attacks, that makes entire sense. I've always wanted to have a cop killer in a Scream movie. And I have to say too, his early scenes as the detective, for me, they really work. But once you introduce like the Quinn twist of her faking her own death, it just begins, you fuck with my family, you die. Oh, you've all been through so much. Oh, you can't steal a cop car. Like that is horrific writing. Even if it wasn't Dermot Mulroney like giving a bad performance, it wouldn't matter. It's just so stinking bad. And then for me, Dermot ruins any potential that this finale could have had, that this character could have had with the finale, because it's just horrible choice after horrible choice as an actor, giving the most cringeworthy line deliveries of your life. It's just awful.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. The reason I have him one above Quinn is just because of the heavy lifting and just because of how he is. I mean, at the bodega, he comes across as actually like this guy is this scary, But Dermot Mulroney, unfortunately, everything in the finale is awful, But he gets more screen time, I suppose. But in general, I don't even like anything about this character whatsoever. Up until, the finale definitely, but up until then, he's not so bad, And again, the only reason I'll repeat myself, the only reason I've given him a higher number than Quinn is just because in the actual costume, he is pretty brutal and scary and, you want to run from that Ghostface.
That's true. And let's round it out here with my worst nightmare as a Ghostface killer. Ethan Bailey, Ethan Landry, whatever you want to call him. If you would have asked me to describe somebody who would be like the worst Ghostface of all time or what a new Scream movie shouldn't have done, it would have been Ethan Landry. It would have been Jack Champion. He's almost a spoof of a Ghostface killer that a straight to DVD movie would have had, 10 years ago. I don't love this like weird virgin thing to begin with, but they do it so poorly And it's never really fully explored beyond just weird cringe comedy. And then you add in him bouncing off Mindy with comedy, and it sinks this character in terms of being scary or, any kind of legitimacy this character could have had. They never find the right tone with him. He's a huge cartoon, in particular in the finale. Like, it's just so cheap, and like, honestly, his one-liners are disgusting. I've always wanted to stick something in you, Tara. His faces, the energy he brings, it's just so gross to me. I want to pretend like he doesn't exist.
As you were talking, I was listening to what you were saying and then saying to myself, right, think of something good to say about Ethan Lander. There must be some redeeming quality, and there really isn't.
Not at all.
I mean, I've seen Jack Champion in other things, and he's not a bad actor at all. But in this, it's just like he's pathetic in everything outside of the Ghostface. I mean, you mentioned the whole bouncing off Mindy. If there's anything remotely funny about that, it's Mindy. Not him whatsoever. She might give something here and there. And even Mindy, I don't think she's fantastic in this film. I prefer her in 5. But there must be something, but there isn't. Nothing comes to mind, beforehand. And, the whole, I was at study class or whatever I was, and him pretending to be, it's terrible. And even in the end, when he reveals himself and I'm looking at him and I'm like, anyone could take you out. There's nothing creepy about you, nothing scary about you, nothing menacing about you. Your dialogue delivery is poor. Your facial expressions are almost worse than your dad's, Yeah, and like you said, that one line is they must have thought that was clever writing, but it wasn't. And I'm glad that Tara destroys him the way she does.
It's gross, and it's like, know your audience, Scream people, Scream creators. Like, that does not fly. Like, that is so gross. Like, that wouldn't have worked even 20 years ago in the mid 2000s. Like, that, it's so cringe on so many levels. I don't even like his death. There's nothing about Ethan I find redeeming, and he's in so many scenes, like, because of all the big group scenes, but he adds nothing to them. It's just, there's nothing about him that I enjoy pre-finale, post-finale. I hate the ending scene with the one last kill, in terms of him running up to Sam and Tara and Kirby throwing the TV. That to me is like the worst thing you could have done in a Scream movie. It is so laughable.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, every scene, he's in a lot of scenes, but even the scenes that he's in, he's overshadowed by everyone, whether that be Chad, Mindy, even Annika, So I don't know. Sometimes I look back and I think, when they were going through the auditioning process and they looked at him, they must have thought, yeah, this guy's fantastic, because that person needs to be fired. There is no redeeming quality, nothing that screams out this would have been a great Ghostface. And, I feel sorry for him as an actor, because like I said, he's done stuff in other stuff that's pretty good. But in this, he's maybe it was the directing, maybe it was the writing, or maybe it was just the choices of his acting. But nothing worked in his favor whatsoever. And unfortunately, if you think about it, there are 11 other killers before you, and yet you've come right at the bottom of the pile. It's not a good thing, put it that way. Yeah. So, like I said, anyone listening that's an Ethan Landry fan, I don't even apologize, because there's nothing good about the character, and he's definitely not a good Ghostface. Like I said, all I am now, I'm listening to myself. I'm reading off negative things about him because there's nothing good to say. You tell me, can you think of one good thing about Ethan Landry?
Nothing. I mean, if I had to stretch, I would say we're led to believe that it's him that goes on that attack in the apartment where they fake Quinn's death. I would say, if anything, I think his physicality is good in that scene. But again, there's only so much you can say and do about a character that's not literally the stunt actor in the Ghostface costume. So it is what it is. I will say, I do think that Detective Bailey, I do enjoy him in some of those early scenes as the cop. So that's why he just gets a slight edge from me over them. But both of them are pretty bad. And a huge reason why Scream 6 is by far the worst movie in this franchise.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on so many levels with that. But I don't know. I think it was Detective Bailey that was in the apartment, because he then, the next day he says, well, I was at film class or whatever. You can ring anyone to find out. Oh, I was studying, whatever. So... Yeah. If that is Detective Bailey, then where were you, Quinn? Because I know it's shoddy writing, but as a Ghostface, think of any other Ghostface that would have been on that subway train with Mindy would never have rescued her.
Exactly. So. That right there, that's pretty much one of the worst decisions, I think, in history. The fact that Mindy could have died, but we have a Ghostface killer save her and take her to the hospital. Give me a break. So, okay, Amar, let's end this on a positive note. I'm going to read out my list, then you can read out yours. Okay?
Yep.
So in conclusion, the way that Ryan C. Showers ranks the Ghostface killers are Roman, number 1, number 2, Jill, number 3, Billy, number 4, Nancy, number 5, Stu, number 6, Mickey, number 7, Charlie, number 8, Amber, number 9, Quinn, number 10, Richie, number 11, Detective Bailey, and number 12, Ethan. And Amar Karim, how do you rank the Ghostface killers?
So I'm going to go with number 1, Billy, number 2, Jill, number 3, Roman, number 4, Mrs. Loomis. I made the change. Number 5, Mickey, number 6, Stu, number 7, Charlie, number 8, Amber, 9, Richie, 10, Detective Bailey. I'll stick with that. Number 11, Quinn, and Ethan.
Amar, thank you so much for this wonderful episode. People have been asking for this episode for a long time, so I think we delivered it to them. Where can they find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Amar Ali Karim, all one word, or on Twitter at Amar Karim, all one word.
Awesome. Thank you, Amar.
Thank you for having me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next segment of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me. I'm sitting here with a bunch of Patreons. We're here having a fun time for something different as it pertains to the Ghostface killers. So this was a game that my producer, TJ Jones, invented for the podcast. I made a video of myself. It's published on social media of me going through this concept. So we are doing what is called Smash, Slash, or Dash Ghostface Edition. And so basically, it's kind of like the, fuck, marry, kill, but it's more fun. It's a different take on it. So basically with this concept, the idea is I'm going to list out all of the Ghostface killers, all 12 of them. And then each of the people who go are going to say whether they would smash, slash, or dash the Ghostface killers. So how I interpret these words, and they're up to interpretation because TJ has a different version of it than I do, but this is how I interpret it. So you answer however you want. But smash is like, ooh, I love them. They're awesome. They're so cool. Love them as a killer. Dash is like, they're okay. I don't love it, but I don't hate them either. And then dash means like, get away from me. I hate you. This is disgusting. Can't even. So that's the criteria. So we're going to have a test subject before we turn it over to all of the Patrons, okay? So everybody, please welcome my producer, my Taylor Swift squad, Ashley. Hey, Ash.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everybody.
All right. So Ash, please tell everybody where they can find you online and our Scream Game of the Week.
Yes, you can find me at Squirrel and Spud 9. You can find the Scream Game of the Week every Wednesday. You do different fun interactive posts where you can maybe cheer on your favorite Ghostface or say who your favorite character is and why. Or sometimes we do something a little bit more tricky and hard, like different types of puzzles. So definitely check that out.
So the puzzles are great. The games are fun. Please check it out every Wednesday. I think people like this shit, and I think it's fun. It's also fun for me to see if I can get the game right. And it's also fun just to share your opinions. Sometimes I get responses directly to me. I forget to share with you sometimes, but sometimes they're dirty. I'm like, sir, madam, this is a public forum. So
I can only imagine.
Okay, well, Ash, you ready to play Smash, Slash, and Dash?
Yes.
Okay. Starting out, your fave, Charlie Walker.
Oh, dash, and I want to slash him too.
Double. Okay. Mickey.
I mean, like prior to knowing he's a killer, smash.
Ethan.
Slash. I don't really care, so
Billy.
dash.
Roman.
Smash.
Okay. Jill.
Smash.
The difference in tone right there between Roman and Jill, it was like a hesitant smash and then smash, All right. Amber.
Slash.
Okay. Stu.
Dash.
Nancy.
Smash. Those eyes, man, those eyes.
Bailey.
Smash.
I mean, I'm right there with you, sister. So Quinn.
Okay, I mean, smash. I'm sorry, but if there's any Ghostface that's gonna like make the time enjoyable, I feel like it's Quinn. I feel like you can have a guaranteed good time with Quinn.
And Richie.
Like I was like that meme where she's like drinking the kombucha and she's like, well, oh, that one's hard because like Jack Quaid, smash. Richie, slash.
All right. Well, it's so fun, Ashley. I feel like you could summarize your answers if like the female killer is gonna smash, everybody else is a question mark. So,
which is weird because like I'm pretty straight. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, so just to recap, I'm going to give my answers for this because I did this on social media but months ago. So, who cares?
Yes.
Right? Okay. So Charlie Walker, I'm going to slash. Mickey, I know. I'm sorry, Ash. Mickey, I'm a smash as a killer and as a man. Billy, I am a smash. I'm sorry. I can't. He could totally seduce me and I would totally be killed. So Ethan, dash, 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 exclamation point, underline.
You don't want to talk about econ?
No, I fucking hate it. Okay. All right. So with Roman, he smash every way, all day, every day.
Sideways.
Yes, upside down, every orifice. So, all right. And Jill, absolutely smash. She and Roman can take turns. Amber, I'm a dash on Amber because I think she's weak as a character in terms of the writing. But she's better than Richie, so I'll give a dash. And she killed Dewey. So, Nancy, mash. So actually, the first time you and I talked about this, you said something. I wondering if you were going to say it again. You said something like, "Oh, those eyes. You could get lost in those eyes." I was like, Ashley's going to run away with Laurie Metcalf. Oh my god.
Love Laurie Metcalf.
Stu, I'm smashing Stu. Bailey as a man. It's okay. Dermot Mulrooney, smash. Bailey as a killer. Quinn, I'm gonna slash her just because I think she is the most interesting of the six killers. Richie, I'm a dash on Richie. Come on, my man. So okay. So all right, well, Ash, thanks. We will now turn it over to the rest of the group here. So let's go over now. Please welcome my friend Frank. You sent me the nicest video this past weekend. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on Instagram and describe whatever the video was you sent me?
So you can find me on Instagram with Frank and Cisco, like Frank and then IN and then CISCO. And the in between dots, so frank.in.cisco. And, I was giving you a video. I was in Hillsburg where Scream 1 was shot. And so instead of in front of the fountain, so I did a little video sitting there in the fountain and just gave a little insight about where I'm sitting. Because I live in San Francisco, so I'm very close. So leading up to Scream 7, I will visit a lot of locations from the movie.
Well, that's awesome. So, like, how far is it from San Francisco, where you live, to Santa Rosa, where most of the locations are?
An hour, I would say. An hour, 1 hour, 20 minutes, something like this.
Cool. I would be there all the time, man. That's so cool. That's awesome.
I'm there very often, yeah. And the first time when I saw that, like the fountain, I almost went insane. And without reading it, I was like, this is the fountain, because I was looking for where it could be.
Anyways, so Frank, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, and feel free to shed a comment or two if you'd like. So first up, Charlie Walker. Dash. Okay.
Yeah, not really my type. Not as a killer and not as a man.
Interesting. Okay, Billy Loomis.
Smash. Yeah, definitely. The first one and the hottest, yes.
Yeah. Ethan Bailey.
Slash.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Definitely.
Amber Freeman.
Smash. Definitely.
Nice. All right, a Roman Bridger.
Double
Right.
smash.
Double smash. All right, Nancy Loomis.
Smash.
Okay, nice. Jill Roberts.
Smash 3 times.
Nice.
Love her so much.
Is she your favorite killer?
Yes. Yes, I would say so, yeah.
Awesome. All right, Quinn Bailey.
Slash.
Okay, and Richie.
Richie is smash, I would say, yes.
Okay. Well, so Frank, since this is your first time on Stream with Ryan C. Showers, hit us with your ranking, if that's okay.
With my ranking of the movies, you mean?
Of the films, yeah.
I know that's a big topic, but I saw Scream 1 in the theater and it meant the world to me. So Scream 1 will always be my best. And I'm not really sure if Scream 3 is the second one or Scream 2 is the second one, but I would say Scream 3 because of Nev's performance and Sydney's journey. Then Scream 2 because I was anticipating that movie for so long and I was in the cinema and I screamed my ass off. So that's why. And then Scream 4, which I didn't like that much for a long time, but now it's definitely jumping in my rank. And then Scream 5, and of course Scream 6, which was the worst of them all, especially how they treated Gail.
Yeah. Poor Gail. Oh my gosh. February can't come soon enough for us to see the real Gail Weathers again, right? Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So, well, Frank, that's so cool. And I love that you are a Scream 3 person. And, I think just what you said about Nev there really touches me. One last question, then I'll move on. But what are you most looking forward to with Scream 7?
There are 3 things that I'm looking forward to. Of course, seeing all the people that we lost along the way, especially Dewey, my heart still bleeds. And when he died, like I couldn't believe it. And when I read about the directors telling, no, we wanted to have it as absolutely he's dead, like cutting the scene that they shot that maybe he's not dead. I hated that. So I'm excited to see him. And then second one, to see the dynamic between Gail and Sydney and the kids, because I'm sure there's gold to be found there. And then third, to see Sydney back in action and really hopefully having her have a big journey and also kind of a breakdown and then what was it called, like that she's rising again, like a breakdown and then a rising star again. I want to see all of that.
Love that. And I share your sentiments. And I saw your shirt. Oh my gosh. So Frank has a I'm a Fighter shirt on with a hand drawing of Sydney in that moment in the theater with Gus. I love it so much. Oh my gosh. So cool. Well, Frank, thank you so much for coming tonight and for joining the Patreon. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm very glad to have joined and to join this community because I was so nervous being a non-English speaker or not non-native. So I was very nervous.
You did a great job. Oh my gosh. Let's go now to Ryan B, the other Ryan here. Hey, Ryan.
Hey there. What's going on, Ryan?
Just hanging out with a bunch of awesome Scream people. So how about
Cool
you?
kids.
Yeah, all the cool kids. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. So, Charlie Walker.
I'm going to start out with this, and it's going to be controversial, but I'm going to say smash. For the sheer fact that before I got married, I was friend zoned my whole life.
Wow.
I appreciate the dude.
Okay.
So, he got a little resentment. He's going to get a little life happy, So I'd say smash for him.
We love empathy. And,
Mhm.
even if Charlie is kind of, a stink and Ashley hates him, it is what it is. Billy Loomis.
I'll say slash.
Okay. Mickey.
Smash.
Amber Freeman.
Smash.
Nice.
She crazy.
All right. She an Oscar winner.
She is.
All right. Roman Bridger.
Smash.
Yeah,
Oh.
you're a Scream 3 guy.
Mhm.
All right. Stu Macher.
Smash. Love Stu. And I'm really interested to see what's going on with this whole cameo with all these guys. I'm like, what are they going to do? I hope they do it well. How's it all going to be intertwined? So really was hoping for that Jennifer Jolie, but we won't ever get that.
Yeah. She may. She may, maybe not in this movie, but in the future, why not?
Hey, she faked her death and became a hermit in the mountains.
Or at least see some footage of Gail and stuff
See
too.
'em.
So yeah, we'd love to see Jennifer Jolie again. So okay, next up is Nancy Loomis.
She's my favorite. That's a smash.
That's right, love it. All right, Jill Roberts.
I'm going to go dash. I would never want to be in that person's vicinity.
Interesting that you embrace Roman but not Jill, and both a blood connection.
Yeah, but she's a cousin,
Yeah. Okay. Detective Bailey.
Dash.
Not for you. All right. Well, let's talk about two of his kids. Quinn Bailey.
I'll give her a slash.
Okay. Yeah. I think slash is appropriate for Quinn. She's the
Mhm.
slashiest of the killer. If I had to give the Radio Silence killers are pretty milquetoast, but she's okay, I guess. Sure. Fine.
She definitely pulled a fast one on me in that movie. I didn't see it coming.
So you bought the death scene?
I did buy the death scene like a big dummy.
Amateur. Richie.
I'm going to give him a slash.
Nice.
I do have to tell you, we were actually down in South Carolina last 2 weeks ago, and one of our best friends, she's like a sister to me. I actually got her and another coworker of ours to go see Scream 6 with me in the theater and converted them. They're not on our level, okay? But so it's in South Carolina, and we found out that she had cancer, she had emergency surgery today. Everything's going good, but it wasn't very good at first, and I didn't see her for the first, for a week or so. And I got back to my office, and she just saw me. We gave each other a big hug, and when she gave me a hug, I said, "Jesus, Gail, you have more lives than a cat." And she backed up and she goes, "I'm fucking Gail Weathers." And I said,
love it.
"Yes, you are." That's a little levity,
Yeah.
And I probably just figured you guys would all appreciate. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I need to go over to Allie next because she has graced us with her Detective Wallace deadpan for a little bit here tonight. So, Allie, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, everybody. Happy birthday, Brett. Did I read that
Happy-
right in the chat? Is it
Yeah.
today, tomorrow?
Yesterday. It's Brett's birthday.
Oh, yesterday.
Yeah, happy birthday, Brett. So, okay. Well, Allie, how are you?
I'm good. All right, let's go.
All right. So, smash/dash. Let's see. Charlie Walker.
Dash, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. He's all right. He's not you get away from me, but he's not smashy. Oh.
Okay. So, sounds like a slash.
Okay. Yeah. Flash then. Whatever.
All right. Billy Loomis. Smash. Love it.
Oh.
Duh. Ethan Bailey.
What a flash.
Okay. Nice. And a couple more slashes than dashes. I thought it would be a straight dash, but some people think Jack Champion's cute, though. Far be it from me. As my friend Josh Reinhold would say, I can't speak for everyone.
No, you know what? I want to change that because he is kind of ew. I don't know. I just the character is very ew. So
Mickey.
smash.
All right. I already know your answer here. It's smash the house boots down. You're deceased. Roman Bridger.
Smash.
Yeah.
Smash. 100% smash.
All right. Stu Macher.
Oh, smash.
Nancy Loomis.
I think smash also because she's also a fantastic kind of crazy. I love her psychosis. So it's great.
Another kind of crazy here. Jill Roberts.
Smash.
All right. Detective Bailey.
Dash, I guess.
Okay. How about Quinn Bailey?
Dash.
All right. And rounding it out with Richie.
Dash. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about any of these killers here?
No, smash Roman, smash Roman.
That is the takeaway. Well, Allie, thank you so much. Where can I find you online?
I am still on Twitter, Allie_cat_BSG. On Blue Sky, same username, but dash instead of underscore.
Cool. Nice. All right. Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
All right. Now to my in-house Cat in the Hat expert, Josh Reinhold.
Just rhyming through life.
Yes, exactly.
I think like I was very confused, but and then you know what I actually think I like more about semi-desexualizing fuck Mary kill into the smash slash dash because I'm always torn because like some people in fuck Mary kill are like, well, if you're marrying them, it's like a sexless marriage, right? So you're like, it's such a weird choice you're making. Whereas in this one, it feels a little bit more, it feels easier for me to make these choices.
Wow.
Yeah.
For the record, folks, Josh doesn't mean speak for everybody, but he must.
Lord.
All right, Josh, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Charlie Walker.
Dash.
All right. Billy Loomis.
Slash.
Wow. Okay. Billy's gotten demoted here. He's been like across the board smashes. So interesting.
So here's my thing, and I'll just say it. Sorry, it pulls it out of order. I gave Billy and Stu slashes because I think that they both get a serious boost from being in the first installment, and I don't think I would be as impressed by them in like a Scream 2 or 3. I mean, Matthew Lillard in moments, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, I'm sticking by it, slashing both of them.
We love when Josh is contrarian to the popular opinion. That is also where I live.
Do you put that for them?
No, I smashed them both, but still, I
Oh.
appreciate a contrarian.
Yeah, they're both like way more your type too, so they're probably getting a little boost from that.
Yeah, Billy is. I like, so the thing about Matthew Lillard is he's very tall. So the picture I got of him whenever I met him at the convention in March, we actually look like a cute couple because he's so tall.
Like we look so hot together.
No, I mean, I did. Whatever.
Dash.
Okay. Mickey.
Smash.
Yeah, I figured he'd be like one of your biggest smashes. Okay. Amber.
Slash.
Okay. Roman.
Smash.
So you've already spoiled this one, but Stu Macher.
Yeah, slash.
Okay. Nancy Loomis.
Smash.
Nice. Jill Roberts.
Okay, so I wrote slash at first, but then I decided I'm gonna say smash.
Okay. I think that's a good, wavering to the smash.
Yeah.
Saying Ethan's like, ooh, smashed.
No,
Right,
there
Ethan?
isn't a word to sort of encompass what I would like to do with Ethan. Dash is not a strong enough negative expression of emotion.
Love it. Same here. Okay. Detective Bailey.
Dash.
All right.
That
That's good.
performance alone.
I know, it's terrible. All right. Quinn Bailey.
Dash.
Okay. And I'll be interested here. Richie.
Richie got a slash.
Okay. Figures. Like hashtag milk toast. Anything you want to share holistically about any of the choices?
So like I was really excited to just try to dash to like really like I don't know, in my head it's like the ghost faces have diminishing returns as we progress, but I feel like Richie and Amber, if I'm being really honest, I think both of those actors like really brought something to their performances that elevated two characters that like really could have been annoying, and really like kind of Charlie in 4, it's like it could have felt like that in terms of quality of the character and the performance. But I think both of the actors took it elsewhere. Like he did such a good job of, I mean, we knew that he could potentially be the killer because we were in a Scream movie, but he felt so genuine. And I thought that like she too just played it really well. And the finale, obviously, she just like went full camp, and I appreciate that.
Yeah. And like that's the thing like about Scream 5 and why I think it does benefit against Scream 6 is the fact that Richie and Amber, yes, they're milquetoast, but they're inoffensive in a way. Like, I mean, they're not super specific, they're not great, but they're not like, they're not the Scream 6 killers.
Like you can point out moments where Mikey and, oh my God, used to be
Jack.
my neighbor, Jack. Like you can point out moments where each of them really like brought nuance to even just like downstairs in the basement with Mindy, for her, and different moments between him and Sam. Like I just think there were like they understood the assignment and they like really dug in, and everything that I don't love about those two ghost faces is not their fault.
Exactly. And like for me, they kind of just like by the time whenever the finale is going on, I barely even notice them. I don't know, because like which is odd because it's always been about the intimacy between like, Sydney and Jill or Sydney and Roman or Sydney and Billy. Scream 5 was just flipped in terms of being about like just we're all about like the final girls being girl bosses, which is, fine. Yeah. Well, Josh, anything else?
That's all. That's all. Yeah. The fuck Mary Kill one would have been really hard for me. So I feel sort of I thought that's what this was. So it became a lot easier once I didn't have to think about it that way, to be honest.
Well, thank you for coming.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, let's go now over to my friend Sam. Hey, Sam.
Hi, Ryan. Hi, everybody. How are you all?
Good, good, good. I'm so happy you came.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, as always.
So, Charlie Walker.
Dash.
All right. Billy Loomis.
You never forget your first. Smash.
You never forget your first. Wow, that kind of took my breath away here. Okay. Ethan Bailey.
I'm running all the Scream 6 killers over with a Mack truck.
Well, if you never forget your first, you always forget your last. I'll say that. So, and he's the last so far. All right, Mickey.
Also, because I feel like he's the most actually realistic portrayal of a serial killer of all the performances.
There's that Zach Sherry influence right there.
Oh, I felt that way before that, but
I
yeah.
know, all right. I know you're gonna be smashing the heck out of this one. Nancy Loomis.
No, Slash.
Really?
Yeah, I love Laurie Metcalf, but I hate the secret identity plot twist so much. So, right down the middle.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're getting somewhere now. Jill Roberts.
Well, I want her to step on me. Smash.
She can smash you. Literally with her foot. Awesome. Bailey.
He's gonna be like he's gonna be a smear on the side of the road when I'm done with him. Dash.
It's like I just feel so silly like asking Sam like these like Scream 6 killers. Quinn. What about Quinn? I'm just okay. Well, he's
Dash.
Yeah. All right. And we're ending with Richie.
Yes, I appreciate the fact that throughout much of the movie, he seems like a genuinely good, caring person, unlike which cannot be said of, I think, almost any of the other characters who turn out to be killers. And on top of that, even after he's revealed, I actually find it kind of disarming that he still seems so cuddly.
Interesting.
I think I really like him.
We love a cuddly Ghostface, I guess. Sam, thank you so much. Any final thoughts?
Once again, thank you for having me, and this has been a pleasure. And you can find me on Instagram at Sam B. Levy and also on Facebook at the same handle.
Wonderful. And last but not least, let's go to Brett. So happy birthday, Brett.
Everybody.
I hope that you have a nice birthday week. All right. So Brett, let's go through the Ghostface killers. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So smash, slash, or dash, Mickey.
Smash.
Okay. Amber.
Slash.
Okay, cool. How about Roman?
Smash.
Okay. Schumacher?
Smash.
Okay. Phil Roberts?
Smash.
Your fave. Yeah. All right. Detective Bailey?
He is so far below that I'm just going to put an infinity and beyond dash.
Okay. He's dashing away. All right. And let's bring up the rear with Richie.
Slash.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for this wonderful Zoom here. I appreciate everyone coming and making time for me and Ash and the gang. Thank you, and we will see you next time.
All copyrighted material used or referenced in this show belong to their rightful owners and made possible by the Fair Use Act.
And number 3, never, ever, ever, under any circumstances say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
Get another beer, you want one?
Yeah, sure. I'll be right back!